Thank you for attending today's presentation. I'm going to be talking about, the title of the lecture is called Thank you for attending today's presentation. The title of my lecture today is called Springtime Preparedness, Allergies from Common Foods, the Environment, and Various Irritants. Many people have springtime allergies, although other people have allergies all year round. And also, in addition, people have allergies to foods and different kinds of substances. So we're going to be talking about the incidence of these things, as well as some background to how allergies are understood today. And we're going to be talking about this from what I call a full spectrum macrobiotic approach. A bit about my background is that in the early 20s, I was exposed to macrobiotic teachings from Oriental teachers. And I was exposed to the principles and ideas of understanding health and the body and mind of Oriental medicine. And I found these to be quite captivating and quite an elegant way of, and effective way of understanding how the body functions according to the principles of balance, also known as yin and yang. And 40 some years later, I still find this is the best understanding of an overview of how the body works, along with incorporating ideas from modern biology, and particularly progressive modern biology, and new research and understanding of science. Together, I call this an east-west approach, or an integrative approach, which I call a full spectrum macrobiotic approach. In addition to using both modern and traditional ways of understanding the body, I also utilize a modern and Eastern traditional way of understanding how to see the health of the body. I call this a system I created called IDX diagnosis. In the full spectrum macrobiotic approach, I utilize diet, but don't demonize any food. So I incorporate and focus primarily on natural foods, but both animal and vegetable foods, because I found that traditional longevity or macrobiotic cultures around the world valued the moderate use of natural animal foods for strength. And this is verified by the understanding of science that certain nutrients are available only in animal food, while on the other hand, certain nutrients are only available in vegetable foods. So these are like a balancing factor. Both of those are a balancing factor. When I was first learned about the macrobiotic diet and approach to eating 40 years ago, it was primarily a vegan diet with no supplements, no herbs, focusing on diet, very little focus on things like treatment, natural treatments, and exercise, especially energetic exercise like Qigong. So over the years, I studied a lot of these things and also was inspired to make changes in the way I worked with people, because the original diet that was presented to me was a fasting cleansing diet, which was extremely low in fat, protein, and nutrients. And this was a cleansing approach that was suitable for people who have been eating high amounts of meat and poor quality dairy products and sugars and fats and flour products. And initially, it worked for many people, including in my health counseling practice over 40 years of healing many conditions. But there were some things that made me think that this had to change. One of the things was that not everybody would do well with this, and that some people who would heal of an illness would get sick again with another illness, and sometimes serious, by eating the narrow cleansing fasting diet. It didn't seem to be a good maintenance diet. On the other hand, over time, I started to see that many teachers at the institute that I was teaching at for many, many years were starting to get sick, and several passed away from cancer and a few from heart disease. And this diet, as it was explained, was supposed to protect you from those illnesses. According to my research, one of the factors I think that contributed to these people's early demise, they didn't die at advanced age, was the fact that there's certain nutrients only available in certain foods. And then I also discovered through the modern conditions, our modern bodies and our modern genetics and constitution and environment, that there's a value of using nutritional supplements as well as traditional herbs, particularly as they outlined in Asia, to balance the body. So this I call a full spectrum approach, and I'm going to explain how I would use this approach to explain and to help people with allergies. Over the years, people have come to me with allergies both from food and the environment. And using the methods I'm going to be talking about today, I was successful in helping them. So before I get into the nitty-gritty of how to do that, I just want to talk a little bit about an overview of allergies. So allergies are a global public health menace. More than 500 people worldwide suffer from food allergies. More than 300 million, or about 5% of the global population, now suffer from asthma. Allergic rhinitis, a risk factor for asthma, affects up to 30% of adults and 40% of children. And common allergens include tree and flower pollen, animal dander, dust and mold. Ingested allergens that affect people include medications like penicillin and foods such as eggs, peanuts, wheat, tree nuts, and shellfish. There's also allergies to nickel, copper, and latex. And allergens can affect different parts of the body according to. An allergen is an immune response that's responding aggressively through a food or environmental substance. These allergens can affect various parts of the body, so symptoms in the nasal passages including itchy, stuffy, or runny nose, postnasal drip, facial pressure and pain. In the mouth area, it includes tingling sensation, swollen mouth and lips, itchy throat, and eyes. Also, it includes basically in the eyes, swollen, itchy red eyes, respiratory system, wheezing, coughing, difficulty breathing, shortness of breath. In the skin, hives, rashes, and swelling. And the gastrointestinal system, things like stomach cramps, vomiting, and diarrhea. And symptoms can occur within minutes after exposure and or sometimes days. Can range from mild to severe. Most severe form of allergic reaction is anaphylaxis, potentially deadly. And people who have this type of condition or know about it usually carry with them an adrenal stimulant called epinephrine, which helps them to get out of the distress and to avoid more serious problems. Food allergy is a global health burden. It is estimated to affect up to 10% of the population in the US alone. It's responsible for 200 anaphylaxis-related deaths a year, 2,000 hospitalizations every year. And the most common food allergens include cow's milk, eggs, peanuts, tree nuts, seafood, soy, and wheat. Now, from a medical viewpoint, there are certain approaches that are used. So for allergies to the environment, certain kinds of desensitization type of techniques are given with ingested substances. For food allergies, people usually take tests which have been found to be somewhat effective and sometimes not effective, and then they'll avoid a food. The gastrointestinal system seems to play a big role in food allergies, and in a few minutes I'll talk about how my own sense is that the gastrointestinal system plays a big role in all allergies. So how the gastrointestinal system acts in food allergies, it acts as a semi-permeable barrier, allowing only usable molecules into the bloodstream after the food has been broken down. Studies have shown that allergen challenge in sensitive sensitized individuals can cause intestinal walls to become more permeable. And when the intestinal wall has been weakened by infection or inflammation, it allows the large molecules of food to pass through the intestinal wall into the bloodstream, which creates an allergic reaction of the immune system to these large molecules, particularly causing digestive complaints. Now, the healthy individuals have trillions symbiotic bacteria in the colon area, and this can become compromised by things like very frequent use of antibiotics. Chlorinated water will kill the intestinal bacteria, and sluggish metabolisms where everything slows down, where the bacteria becomes more harmful. And we'll talk about some of the use, how you could heal this area of the body. Now, the way this was used it's interesting because we're going to be talking about some ideas from Chinese and Oriental medicine. And one of the, an idea from Chinese medicine and Oriental medicine is that the allergies, both food allergies and environmental allergies, are related to the condition of the gastrointestinal tract. And it's still, today, it's still quite, it's known that people in China and Asia seem to have less allergies than people in Western countries. And part of this is that there's an understanding of food and what is the better food for a digestive system. And it's still taught in the Orient. I remember one of my students who's from Chinese background would tell me that in her family there was a lot of discussion about eating and pooping, two sides of the spectrum, what comes in and what goes out. And this is not so much discussed in other families because there's still a common understanding of what people should eat. And in order to understand what we talked about, let's talk a little bit about this idea of the Oriental concept of what people should eat. And this interesting thing about this concept of what people should eat from ancient China and other Oriental countries is that it's really the common eating that people ate around the world before modern times. And it was expressed in ancient China as what they call a clear light diet. And a clear light diet is taught as the diet that's best for the human being. So it consists of food that is easy on the digestive system and fosters and doesn't put a strain on digestion, because the idea is digestion is the main place we get energy to fuel the whole body through the nutrition in our food and the energy we get from our food. So digestion was seen as being crucial, and in order to keep and so it's a poor digestion is the root of many, many health problems, because then the body doesn't function well. So to understand this clear light diet, the concept of the clear light diet, which I myself was introduced to something similar concept coming from Japan more than 40 years ago, is that they, in the Oriental and Chinese, particularly Chinese medical way of seeing the digestive system, they saw it as a cooking pot and a fire underneath it. The cooking pot would be the stomach, somewhat the small intestine, and we can say in a modern sense, the fire underneath it is your digestive enzymes and the health of the small intestine to absorb foods. So anything that would foster the cooking, which means the heat within the digestive tract, and the fire underneath, would be considered good for digestion, and anything that would go against that would hurt digestion. So, for instance, the idea that what would foster digestion is whole grains. So grains, even from a modern viewpoint, the body runs on carbohydrates, runs on glucose. And so we need a certain amount of sugars in our body, and particularly as traditional cultures all around the world did, they focused on different kinds of whole grains. So this is important, well-cooked whole grains, not necessarily grain products, but whole grains such as brown rice and millet, even organic white rice, as well as barley. And this can include some wheat products, including whole grain noodles, certain kinds of whole grain breads like sourdough bread. Then also, in addition, then people should have cooked vegetables versus raw, because raw vegetables are not digestible because the body has to work to digest them, and the body doesn't have the ability to break down the fiber like other animals. Other animals, such as the horse and the gorilla and the cow, which has 4 stomachs, has inside rumen, which breaks down all the fiber and makes it digestible. And human beings don't have that, so we don't get as much. So it puts a strain on digestion to eat a lot of raw food. Then, in addition to that, we need foods that are basically very rich, but in small amounts because they're harder to digest, which would include, but they build the body, which include things like natural dairy products, natural meats and fish and chicken. In addition, we need things like beans. We need natural fats in moderation because they're too much, they're hard to digest. And we need things to help digest these foods, such as seasonings like mild spice and herbs. As a supplement to this, we could also use things like nuts and seeds and natural beverages. And so this would be the clear light diet. Things that would go against the clear light diet would be, and your digestive system would be overeating or eating too much rich foods like sugary food, which is very rich, fatty food, too many wheat products, too much meats, especially red meats and modern red meats, which are bred to be fatter, have more fat in them, and also what would hurt digestion would be things like skipping meals, as well as not eating enough, as well as eating too much. Taking cold foods and drinks, especially with meals, would hurt your digestive system. Especially things like ice cream and very concentrated foods like juices, or taking too many juices, or things like concentrated tomato sauce. Anything that's very concentrated would be hard on digestion. So they call it clear light diet because it's mildly seasoned and focused around grains and vegetables with moderate amounts of other natural foods. Now, according to the Chinese and Oriental medical theory, allergies, both food and environmental allergies, begin in infancy and early childhood, because what happens is that until the age of 6, a child's digestive system is not formed well. So you have to go on a training diet. Their idea is you have to go on a training diet to make it easy before the digestive system is fully formed at the age of 6. So a training diet would be watery, soft-cooked grains, small amounts of meat or natural animal foods and soups, well-cooked vegetables that are creamed, small amounts of fruits, things like that. So this would be the diet of children, and as they get older, that would change. Now today, what we do is we feed children very hard to digest foods, and it's easy to see how this will compromise the whole digestive tract and intestines to create food allergies. And in a few minutes, I'll talk about what the relation is to environmental allergies too. So instead of giving easy to digest food, a training diet to children before 6, we often give them a lot of cold foods. So we give cold juices, cold yogurt that's sugary or sweetened. We sometimes give a lot of wheat products. You'll see children being given cookies, given cakes and donuts. You'll see children get donuts. You also see that children will be given adult foods, expected to eat like adult foods that are hard in texture, or given too much meats or animal food, or too much rich foods like a lot of milk or a lot of fats. They'll be given too much fatty, sugary foods, especially with concentrated food like a flour product, which is a very nourishing and concentrated food, but hard to digest, such as peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So it's easy to see that for many, particularly this is the diet in the West, because in other cultures they still understand about giving a children's training diet and about the clear light diet, especially in Asia. So then the children's digestive system will be compromised at a young age. And then when people eat a lot of foods that compromise digestion, it creates something called a damp condition, And a damp condition would be seen as a swollen condition of the digestive tract. All the way up and down the digestive tract is swollen, inflamed, and often congested with mucus, because mucus comes when there's inflammation in the body. And so this would then, of course, then a person would react to foods. And the most reactive foods that people react to are things like wheat, especially flour products. Flour products is a very nourishing food, but very concentrated because it takes a lot of wheat in the whole form of something called a wheat berry to make wheat flour. So it's a nourishing food, but it's very concentrated. Eggs, which is incredibly nourishing foods and healthy in moderate amounts, but if the digestive system is compromised, the person can't digest this food. Also, another allergic food is soy products, which certain soy products are very nourishing and rich, but like tofu. But if the digestive system is compromised, the person can't digest them, so they get irritated by them. And many other foods can contribute to this. We'll talk about in a few minutes. In addition to that, people will eat a diet which creates a lot of irritation and swelling and congestion or dampness in the digestive tract their whole life. So then they can't get rid of allergies, even when they're just keeping away from the foods that they most react to. So now, another element of this is that this is understood in traditional Oriental medicines, that when this congestion arises in the digestive tract around the pancreas, which produces digestive enzymes, around the small intestine and large intestine, then you could also have the congestion or the dampness go into other areas of the body, such as the lungs, the beginning of the lungs, the bronchial tubes, and also into the sinuses, the sinus cavities, and also into the throat area, and around the eyes where the sinus cavities are. And then the person will react to the environmental influences, such as dander and dust and hair and pollen, because it gets trapped in these areas that are already irritated and congested, and it irritates those areas. So there's a direct link and a direct way to help and recover from the allergies. There's a direct way to recover from the allergies that basically a person is experiencing by healing the digestive tract. This is the approach that I use in the full spectrum macrobiotic approach. Now, recommendation I'm going to be giving and the suggestions have to be altered because depending on the severity of your allergies, depending upon your condition, you would have to adjust these recommendations, such as the foods to avoid, where you could be more strict or less strict, or certain foods you might need, certain foods you avoid. Now, a lot of the foods basically to avoid, which are good to limit for healthy people, but especially with allergic reactions, would be things like cold foods and drinks, which strain the digestive system, which the worst being when you're eating foods. Also, citrus. Citrus is also very concentrated and irritating to the digestive tract, so it can create dampness. Juices, which is a very concentrated sugary food, so it takes like many apples to make a cup of apple juice. Raw foods, which irritate the digestive tract and put a strain on it, can't be digested. Conventional dairy products and meats, which are often not prepared in certain ways, or too rich in fats, or not digestible. Refined sugar, which is basically a very concentrated food. Alcohol, milk, and any food a person is allergic to. Now, there are foods that are healthy foods that, again, depending on the person's condition. Now, how I would do this in my health counseling, my full spectrum health counseling practices, where I give consultations to people, recommendations about diet and lifestyle and supplements and herbs as well. I would look at the person's body using the system that I created called IDX diagnosis. And then what I would do, if I saw certain signs, if I saw certain signs, I might limit certain foods that were very rich and nourishing for certain conditions. Why some people, I would encourage people to eat some of these foods because their condition is one of weakness and they need these nourishing foods. So depending on the person's condition, I might have them limit red meats, or I might have them limit dairy products from grass-fed animals that are healthy foods, wheat products, healthy fats, eggs from pastured, free-range chicken, natural sweeteners, and nuts and seeds. So these foods have a role to play in moderation for healthy people if they're open to eating them, because they have a rich quality to them that nourish the body and strengthen the body on a deeper level. Now, in addition to these kinds of things, then I would recommend and teach people how to eat what I call and how to eat for themselves, particularly certain nourishing foods within what I call the clear light diet, which is also I call a full spectrum macrobiotic way of eating. So basically, cooked grains and vegetables will be part of this. Now, depending on the person, usually with focusing on lightly cooked greens and sweet vegetables as vegetables. And the amount of cooked grains to vegetables would vary depending upon what's going on in that person's condition. So sometimes people would need a little more cooked grains, sometimes more vegetables. Again, I would determine that based on seeing their condition according to my assessment of IDX diagnosis. The moderate and regular amounts of natural animal proteins, and then proteins, it depends on the condition, which ones would be better for people. Supplements for vegans and vegetarians to replace nutrients from animal source foods to help a person. Moderate use of natural fats. Natural fats have a role to play for the gastrointestinal tract, such as butter, coconut oil, olive oil, monounsaturated fats. Seeds and nut butters, cooked seasonal fruit, some raw in hot weather depending on the condition of the digestive tract. The moderate use of natural seasonings such as spices, sweeteners, sea salt, and herbs, and natural beverages such as herbal teas. You can learn more about this at my website, macrobiotic.com, where I have a section on what is a full spectrum macrobiotic approach, and you could understand a more bigger view of this and a specific understanding of why I came to this. And you can look up what's called What is the Macrobiotic Diet. I also have some blog posts where I talk more about the clear light diet and its role in health, which I call full spectrum macrobiotic way of eating. In addition, depending on the person's condition, for instance, the digestive system is very weak, then a person would need to take some supplements that are easy to absorb to heal the digestive tract, depending on the person's condition. This might include high-potency multivitamin. This can include also vitamin A, vitamin D, and K, usually taken together. It might include some B vitamins, which are important for the health of the gastrointestinal tract. It may also include some things to clear the congestion through the sinuses or the gastrointestinal tract. One very common thing I recommend is a Chinese, an Indian, not Chinese, but Indian herbal formula called Triphala. And I would recommend that but you have to take that a long time, and it's been very helpful for particularly environmental allergies to dander and dust and pollen. But it also has the effect of cleaning the digestive tract from congestion, swelling, and inflammation. I might also offer some things for inflammation if sometimes there's more inflammation and sometimes they're more like mucus congestion. So if there's more inflammation, I might use things like a turmeric extract. I might also recommend certain herbs to strengthen digestion. There are some natural formulas that are used in Chinese medicine to clean out for bloating, if there's bloating issues, or if there's some kind of irritation in the digestive tract. So I might use these. There's a whole plethora of different kinds of supplements or herbs and natural remedies with food. Sometimes people need remedies to clean the mucus out of the digestive tract if there's a heavy congestion there. And some people need some natural food remedies to strengthen the digestive system. When in all the different categories of foods, there are foods that are better for different types of conditions compared to others. If someone was a heavy meat eater, that is a different type of condition that leads to allergies than someone who is, say, not a heavy meat eater or even has been vegan or vegetarian and is prone to allergies. Different approach might have to be used, usually does have to be used. So this could give you an overview for people who are interested in more. If you have a very specific needs, as I said, I have the full spectrum macrobiotic health counseling, and you can learn more at my website about many issues about health, both from articles and blogs, and I have also videos that are on YouTube that you can watch. For people who'd like to study more themselves, I have a training program, a diagnosis plus nutrition health coach training program, and also some other audio and video training programs. So thank you very much for attending today's lecture.